Hi, folks. Welcome to Film Optimist, where we talk about all things film with a healthy dose of optimism. I'm your co-host, Seth Boyd.
And I am Megan Tierney.
And folks, we're just coming off recording our new episode with Jordan Morris. You know him from podcasting. You know him from his podcast, Jordan Jesse Go, been on for over 15 years. You know them from appearing on a myriad of other famous podcasts. Always a delight to have on. You know them from comedy, from touring, from writing, from playing several characters on Good Mythical Morning. And it was just an absolute delight to have them on the show to talk about their selection, Devil in a Blue Dress.
Yes, Jordan was so gracious to let us fangirl over him as an accredited writer. And he gave us his 2 cents about what podcasting life is like, especially having done it for that long. But he also talked about stuff like his career across various writing mediums, including venturing into the Archie Comics universe. And of course, discussing a film that was on his watch list, which is Devil in a Blue Dress, like Seth mentioned. So without further ado, folks, here is our interview with Jordan Morris.
Jordan Morris, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, great to be here.
Hi, Jordan.
Thank
Very
you.
nice to meet you.
Megan and I are both big fans of your work, and
Shucks, thank you.
excited to talk to you about your work, more recent work in comics as well. We both
Sure.
read Pop's Chocolate Shop of Horror,
Yes.
and we have a pre-order for that coming up. If you don't mind, actually, we'd like to maybe do a little bit of a kind of questions before we dive into your selection for
Of course,
this
yeah.
episode, which is Devil in a Blue Dress. Great.
Yes.
Kind of starting with a podcasting question. You've been podcasting for 16 years now, if I remember right. Maybe radio
Continuously,
before that.
non-stop.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm going to roll right from this one into another one. I only stop to sleep.
Perfect.
Yes.
Great. Well, I guess the question is this kind of what you saw podcast becoming when you were early days? Is this anything like what you thought it would be? Or how do you feel about the state of podcasting?
Yeah, boy, it's been really interesting. So I have been doing my chat podcast, Jordan Jesse Go, with my co-host Jesse Thorne. We have been doing that for, I think, as you said, about 16
Great
years
show.
now. And yeah, we started pretty early. So we were like, we had a college radio show together. We had Jesse and I were on KZSC Santa Cruz, 88.1 FM, the heavyweight 88. So we were kind of college comedy dorks and wanted to do something on radio, so we woke up at 6 a.m. and kind of trudged to the radio station and did our show for probably 5 or 6 people, truckers who happened to be passing through and listening.
The 5 a.m. slot is
the 5 a.m. slot. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how many more listeners we would have gotten if we were prime time. Again, it's college radio, so not a huge listenership, but it was a fun place to kind of goof around and to kind of find our voices and to be bad for a while, to kind of suck for a very small audience. And so we both loved doing that show. And when we graduated college and moved to LA, Jesse is he was kind of on top of it. He was like, there's this new thing, it's called podcasting. You download the file right to your iPod at the time. And we kind of did our old college radio show as a podcast. And it wasn't really something that I saw going anywhere. Our audience was, and I think still is to a degree, a very specific kind of hyper nerd,
Sure.
And
we're among them.
I think to me, that is maybe who I saw as the audience for podcasting. But now, my mom listens to podcasts, and every bro at the gym is listening to Joe Rogan, and there's everybody at the book club's got a true crime podcast. So it's really interesting how it's broadened out. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw it becoming like it is. It's cool. It's cool that anyone can start one, to a degree. And it's great that there's something out there for everyone. It's really neat.
That's nice. That's a really like organic way to enter into podcasting. I feel like the radio show to
Sure,
podcasting is
yeah.
kind of the
Right.
biggest or the easiest transition, I would say. But
Yeah.
I wonder how, like, is it also really cathartic to you to have, like, because yours is very conversational. I feel like it's very just, talking about what's on your mind at the moment.
Yes.
Is that pretty
I mean,
cathartic for you?
conversational, that's a nice way to put it. Some would say
It is.
nonsensical, but
Sure. But how freeing is that even
No,
as a writer?
it's really nice. I mean, I think that like, we struggle a little bit because were we to start a podcast in 2023, we would probably pick a topic, God forbid, like film, for instance, just to pick one out of the blue.
Right.
So it can be a little bit tough to like, all right, what are we going to talk about this week? But Jesse and I are good friends, and we always kind of find something to talk about. So yeah, its formlessness is, it's a feature and a bug at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes I wish there was kind of something to grab onto, but other times, yeah, you're right. It can just be like as fun as shooting the shit with your friends.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, and I think I didn't know that existed until listening to your podcast. I had heard podcasts before where they always kind of get to a point of shooting the shit. And so it was a really fun discovery to find Jordan Jesse Go that is almost entirely that, and quickly became my favorite podcast. Not just saying that because you're here, but just like I think you guys, I don't know if you invented it, but you just do it so well. And I was never a talk radio guy, but I'm also that hyper nerd who enjoys the things you're talking about.
Sure.
And on that note, when you guys conceived the college show, was there comedy or radio icons you were thinking of that you were drawing from for inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we were both trying to do was like imitations of like drive time DJs we both liked. Like I grew up in Southern California, where I still live, and our morning guys on the modern rock station were Kevin and Bean. And
they were in the Bay Area for a while.
Sure. And so I think I really liked them. I mean, they did like band interviews and prank calls and stuff, but also just were kind of compelling weirdos who were interesting when they were just talking about their lives. And I think that's kind of what we were shooting for, as far as we'll have some content, we'll have some prank calls and bits and sketches and stuff, but also just make a little space to just talk about our lives. So, which is now kind of what the show is basically entirely. But I think that we both were kind of like drawn to, those funny weirdos on radio who kind of revealed a little bit about themselves between the bits.
Very cool. If you don't mind, we'll kind of transition to questions about writing, Jordan.
Sure.
So you've written in so many mediums now. You've been television writer, comic book writer, Bubble, which is now a great graphic novel, was originally a scripted podcast, which is also fantastic. Do you have a preference of medium at this point, or do you have like things you like and dislike about each of them?
Sure, I do. A thing I like about TV is how much money it pays you. That's really good. I think that's definitely points in favor of television.
Writing that down.
Yes.
Right.
Of those mediums, that is the one that currently pays and provides you health insurance.
Nice.
But there's awesome things about all of them. Like like I was such a comics kid growing up, and to like be able to like hold a comic that you helped make is it's just insanely cool. Like it is cool in a way that like watching an episode of TV you worked on is not. Like the fact that there's just a physical object that you can touch and page through is, I don't know, it's just fucking cool. And it's like getting to make something is really neat. And like, writing the scripted podcast version of Bubble, something very cool with that was just like, with those other things, it just takes so long to make them, and to have that kind of relatively small window between writing the thing and having it out there is awesome. Like, I think, you know, a part about, you know, the industry that, you know, no one really prepares you for, or no one really prepared me for, I guess, is like, things will take a fucking long time, and they will have weird stops that you don't quite understand, and people will get fired, and you won't hear from people for months, and whatever. So, you know, there could a frustrating thing about other kinds of writing is just like, there's just these pauses that you don't have a lot of control over. And you know, and when you're excited about something, you can't wait for people to ingest it, listen to it, read it, watch it, whatever. And that, like, pause can be so frustrating. And something so great about, you know, doing audio is that, like, you can get it out there pretty quick. Like, if you know, it's really exciting when we do a great episode of Jordan Jesse Go, just knowing that, like, in a couple days people will hear this, and you know, there's not a lot of admin muckety muck and post-production and stuff to do. So yeah, that's a really cool part about audio. It's just like, you can really just kind of, the excitement is, you know, you can kind of just keep it going in this really fun way. And yeah, and it's easy to get like stoked about that kind of creativity. Yeah, so I don't know, each thing has its pros and cons, and yeah, I'm really lucky that I've gotten to do a lot of different stuff. It's really cool. It definitely, like, is kind of a part of the modern creative economy. You know, it's hard to specialize these days. You have to kind of have your fingers in a lot of pies. But if, you know, there's annoying things about that, but also, you know, it could be really cool. And if you know, yeah, I think I've kind of just resigned myself to, like, go with it, have fun. You know, if someone wants you to be a part of a cool project, be a part of a cool project. And yeah, just, like, you know, hopefully you like the thing you're making.
Very cool. Thank you.
That you were a comics kid really warms my heart, that you're able to now, like, have it. I feel that's really cool. And I must ask, like, was Archie a big part of your comic boy life in the early days? Really?
Yeah,
okay,
totally. So my mom is an Archie fan, and, like, my mom, you know, would always, you know, pick up those digests and stuff at the supermarket counter for us. And, like, you know, like, so I think it started out as like, okay, like, I need to get these kids something at the store so they'll behave, you know. But they became such fun treats and such a big part of, like, enjoying reading and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been really, really cool to work for the Archie folks, and to kind of contribute to something that I've been enjoying as long as I can remember, basically.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Great. Yeah, on that line, in terms of working with Archie, this is, from my understanding, such a departure from the standard Archie comic, this horror comics you have. Was there some specific guidelines of, like, you can and can't do this, you know, to make it still Archie?
Yeah, so so the comics I've worked on, you mentioned Pop's Chocolate Shop of Horrors, and Camp Pickens is the next issue. It's coming out on June 21st. And yeah, this is a line of Archie that, you know, all bets are kind of off. I think the most important thing to them is that you preserve the characters. You can kill the characters, you can have them kill each other, but I think in that process you have to be, you know, you have to kind of preserve what people like about them, because people have been liking these characters for, you know, like 100 years basically. And so yeah, so it's not a matter of, like, who lives and who dies, and who's, you know, Archie dating at the end of the issue, Betty or Veronica. Like, it's kind of more about, like, Veronica is confident, Archie is pure of heart, Betty is kind of all-American and type A, and Jughead is hungry and cool. And, like, if you preserve those things about them, then it doesn't really matter that their heads get chopped off at the end. So yeah, it was a fun kind of exercise in, like, thinking about these characters and what people like about them, and, like, trying to preserve that while also telling the craziest possible story you can think of.
Which you certainly accomplished. It was fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's really fun.
It is, yeah,
it's definitely fun to, like, just plot wise to be able to kind of like, put down the craziest thing you can think of, because, again, as long as those characters kind of shine through, they're okay with it. So.
Dang.
Right.
Wow. That's cool.
Very cool. Okay, I think we have one more question. We'll get to the movie, if that's all right. Megan, you had one?
Yeah, sure. So we know that you're a writer for GMM, or for Good Mythical Morning, if people don't know what that is, which is how I came to know you, good sir, and came to love that show as well. I feel like
thanks. Yeah,
you could kind of tell that it's a very like writer-centric show, not to like take away credit from Rhett and Link, I feel like, but I feel like, especially now, it's just evolved into such a enterprise, I should say. So do you ever feel like that you're kind of, it is a writer show medium where you guys get to go behind the scenes and kind of present what you're going to do for the day, or like present what happens?
Sure. I'll maybe like clarify a little bit my role on that show. So I was in their writer's room a couple years ago. I like totally had a great time, and kind of wanted to maybe try some other stuff. So they were very supportive in that. They said that, I was part of the family and could kind of still come back and goof around and contribute to the show on kind of an occasional basis. So that's kind of my role in Good Mythical Morning these days. I kind of come back as needed. And I say that because I don't want to take away from the work that their awesome writers room does. A lot of great folks in there doing really cool work. And I am an occasional helper and day player, and really love that I can still be part of that very fun, very goofy family. So but as far as like writer input, I mean, like obviously when you watch that show, Rhett and Link are like goofing around off the dome, and they are very funny and like have that kind of awesome rapport. But it's kind of like, it is a little bit like doing those Archie stories. It's like, how can I help these guys, be their essential funny selves? Like, how can I provide them the tools needed to like be comfortable and be creative and be as like funny and nice as they can be? So I think it's kind of similar in that way. It's less about like, how can I get out my jokes, or how can I, get out this idea that's been in my brain, but it's like, how can I create a space for the most fun and comedy possible? And I think that like the good bits that you would pitch on that show kind of like have a lot of room for spontaneity and, improv and kind of surprising things happening in the moment.
Right. You can kind of tell. Like that's really cool to hear too. So thanks for that.
Very cool. Thank you. Well, going into the movie you selected for us, Jordan, which is Devil in a Blue Dress. I'm very glad you suggested this, because we have not had an episode where we've had a guest that no one had seen the movie prior to it, which my understanding was you sent us your watch list. So I think it's going to be very on brand for what we do here. And we basically, our core idea is that we've always been making good movies since we've been making movies. There's 100 years of good movies out there. So I was kind of always peeved when said there's nothing good to watch. It's like there's 100 years. It's like pick a different country, pick a different decade.
Right. Yeah.
And a decade I've been very drawn to lately is America in the 90s. I think it was such a great time for American cinema. So how did this movie kind of come to your radar, Jordan?
So I think I mentioned I was a comics kid up top. We are all many kids. Within us all are many kids. And I was also like a mall kid, right? Like I grew up in Southern Orange County, and we would get dropped off at the mall a lot. And I think part of that led to me loving movies, because just like, what are you going to do when you're dropped off at the mall for a couple hours? You're just going to see what starts next. And I think I did a lot of that. And I think I did a lot of that in the 90s. And I have like vague memories of seeing this movie. I think, if I'm getting my kind of timeline right, I think this kind of came out after Pulp Fiction. So I think I was into the idea of like crime movies and noir and kind of all that kind of stuff that Pulp Fiction is riffing on. And so I think I was excited by this movie because I think it seemed, kind of in that zone to me. And yeah, I have just like vague memories of really liking the movie when I saw it in the 90s. And it was one that whenever it would pop up on a streaming service, I would always put it on my watch list and then just never quite get to it. I think, it's just one of those that always kind of hangs out on my watch list. And sometimes it'll disappear because the streaming service, loses the rights to it. And so this podcast was just a great excuse of like, oh, I'm going to watch one of those movies that's been just perpetually on my watch list. So it was a fun excuse to revisit this movie that I had like vague positive feelings about, but couldn't remember the specifics of.
Great. That's very cool. I definitely have those movies. I was not the drop it mall kid so much as left alone with the TV for like 12 hours. So it's like, what did I watch on VH1 in 1998?
Good. That was a good year for VH1. Probably The Craft.
Yeah, it was.
The Craft showing on VH1. Rocky Horror Picture Show. It
probably was The Craft. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of classics. So how did you feel about it upon rewatch? And I should say we don't really do a scene by scene analysis. We're going to kind of talk about it with full spoilers and everything. But this is a crime thriller for folks playing along at home, set in 1948. Denzel Washington is kind of a reluctant private investigator, kind of down on his luck, and gets a weird job offer and becomes a PI.
I for the most part really liked it. I've read a couple of like PI novels recently, so it was like kind of fun to see this one. And I've never read. This is part of a series of books, I think, or this is based on a series.
Yes.
Of books.
This was hopeful to launch a series of movies too, was my understanding. So unfortunately, didn't quite make the box office. Yeah,
they really set it up for the end, and this is one where I'm like,
they really did.
I kind of wish they cranked out a bunch of these, or they could just. Denzel Washington still looks this old. They could just do one now. I mean, cold take. The man looks great.
Very true.
I think, Don Cheadle too. Just do the sequel and don't even say that they're older.
It's still 1948. No time has passed.
Yeah, of course. They're like, on to the next adventure. I finally set up that private eye office I said I was going to do in the end.
Indiana Jones style. Jones style.
I mean, it does have a lot of like, shock value stuff. And I kind of like, and I know this is such a part of the genre, like, Chinatown, the end of Chinatown, right? It's supposed to kind of be like shocking and dark. And I found myself like thinking about that shocking darkness and also the like, racial themes in this, right? Like it is a movie about race and like has all this shocking dark stuff. And I am like, I think I am maybe not equipped to comment on how this stuff intersects and whether or not it's doing a good job, and I wonder if like, kind of some of that shocking stuff being in this story about like race in America, I think a smarter person than me could talk about how that stuff goes together. And if it goes together well, it might not. It might like be, an accidental problematic fave, So yes, I would love to hear a smart person talk about this movie. I will not be that person. So I think it I was thinking a lot about that, but like, that's stuff aside, just the kind of moment to moment pleasures of the movie, like it's a blast. Denzel is great. Don Cheadle is great. There's a lot of like great acting in it. A lot of fun humor. And just like, I love a movie where someone's always drinking a glass of whiskey. I just like it.
Yes.
It makes me want to drink a glass of whiskey. I love it when people just like before a conversation will just like pour a drink and I'm like, yeah, cool. I don't know.
No ice, a Collins glass. They're just filling that thing up.
Right. Yeah. I love it. That was in general, I like really, really enjoyed the ride.
Cool. And Megan, kind of same question for you. How did you feel about this as a first time viewer?
I mean, I agree with you, Jordan. Like the thing that stood out to me kind of was the racial elements, because I realized like this was probably the first movie that I've seen maybe in a long time, or just even of that era too, of like the 90s, where good old fashioned American racism is like a really big part of the plot line and kind of move things along also. And specifically like timely American racism of the 40s, of being a black man in the 40s, but of being a black man in like suburban LA area. So that was what stood out to me, and just like what is what came on my mind. I agree with you, Jordan. I'm not going to be the smart person to analyze if that was done correctly, even in the 90s, which maybe had their own, they were going through their own thing of racism at the time as well. So it's like, it's interesting to see it in that lens also. It's just like different eras of that going on. And but otherwise it's so beautiful. Like such a, I always, I have this thing where I'm like, I say texture in a movie, but things are so tangible in this movie. Like the amazing sets, the really cool like LA cottage style houses or cottage style apartments. What is that called? Yes.
Kind of like a bungalow, I guess.
Bungalow. Thank you, Seth. That was the word I was thinking of.
Great
bungalow
bungalows.
style.
Yeah,
My favorite.
Great period details. There's a couple scenes that take a place in a speakeasy above a convenience store. And like, what a look. I mean, where do you want to be more than that speakeasy? You know?
I know.
While, you know, jazz is playing and someone is trying to sell you bootleg liquor out of a suitcase. I mean, like, just as
I love that detail to
speakeasy.
Right? It's a speakeasy, but the bar is still a separate entity. It's people with a suitcase, a briefcase coming up to your table. I also partially love that because I hate leaving my table to go get a drink at the bar. So it's like that is the ideal scenario to me. Is I can just buy the bottle right there.
I know, prevents you from having to get the bartender's attention and
exactly. Yeah,
you're gonna leave your card behind. Yeah, what's the just resolve so many issues.
Also, Denzel's character's house, Easy's house, is so lovely and small at the time, but I just can't stop thinking like, oh, well, that's $1 million house nowadays or stuff like that. So that's a little, that hurts a little bit, but it's still
Zillow
really fun
should
to see.
sponsor like a pop-up feature where every time you see a cool house in the movie, the Zillow price pops up and you can just feel bad that you'll never ever be able to afford it.
Zillow's new commercial can be that.
Exactly. Just to settle down. Yeah. I think that's a great point in addressing like how well's the, not just the movie age, but like the issues, because it's of course a movie in the 90s talking about the 40s. And I think a lot of the race issues are still there. It is sad to think about. This is kind of depicted as the poor black neighborhood in this LA suburb that is a segregated neighborhood. And of course that is now, like we said, a very expensive house. So some of those things you can't really predict. Like I said, Jordan, we do full spoilers here. So I think the kind of what you were alluding to earlier was that this movie ultimately ends up involving pedophilia with part of the case. And sorry if that's not what you're alluding to, but it's a pretty heavy thing that is in that already heavy movie.
Also just kind of a scene to scene kind of shocking, violent stuff that happens. But
Tom Sizemore is a very disturbing character. There's some like nearly assault happening in a very upsetting way with him. So I think you make a good point. Like there's some things that are kind of like I don't know if the movie's better. Not that I want to be a Puritan about it. It's like I don't know if the movie handled that well enough, especially given everything else it's talking about. And I'm also not the expert there, but I'd be very curious to hear more about that because it certainly depicts what I think is a gritty, real world that is maybe alluded to in some of the better film noirs from the 40s, but of course they're in the 40s, they can't make things as explicit. But yeah, I think it certainly goes to some heavy places, but at the end of it, I wasn't expecting. But I'm not sure if I'm just was in a good mood. By the end of the movie, I was still kind of happy. I still kind of felt like I had a good ride by the end of the movie.
It's funny to compare it to like Pulp Fiction too, like at the same timeline of this, because we're getting so many like in that late 90s, we're getting so many LA era, noirs, because and we actually have an episode about Pulp Fiction where we talk about like it's painting LA kind of in this kind of in like a parody aspect almost, or it's kind of like a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, it's kind of a stylized Hollywood
Yes.
version of it. And you know,
That's
this movie is
definitely-
riffing on other movies. So yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is kind of giving you that film noir version of LA, but you know, in beautiful 90s Technicolor.
Exactly. I agree. And then that's probably how I felt about it too, Seth, is because it is so pretty, first of all, but like I think that
Sure.
that it ends it actually ends on a very like happy note with his little monologue about you know, things are going up from here, guys, kind of thing.
Sure,
and
he's gonna
really...
start that PI
Right.
agency and have many sequels to come.
Yes, that's true. But in a way, I think it reminded me, this one was very like kind of straightforward literary. Like I could see the book element of that it came from, or the novel element. That's always kind of fun for me. Like you can imagine, the biggest pleasure of reading to me is kind of imagining it as how we would film it, or how I would film it. So that was fun to see.
Did any we mentioned Don Jones and the other actors here? Were there any like kind of standout scenes? Like we have some like pouring a bourbon, of course, always great. But is there like a moment where like I'm really in this movie is doing it for me?
I love just what a cheerful psycho Don Cheadle is, and it's such a funny choice. It's such a funny choice.
Yeah.
So he plays a guy, you know, with a violent past who you know, Easy calls in to help him with this caper. And you know, he kind of calls him because he's like, oh, I need some muscle. I need like a guy who will, you know, back me up if, you know, things go south. And Don Cheadle the character just loves violence so much. His name is Mouse. And he
great.
And there's a moment where he like kills a hostage, and you know, and Easy comes back to find that he's killed the hostage, and he just says something along the lines of like, well, you left him with me. Why'd you leave him with me?
What did you expect?
You know I'm gonna kill him.
I love that.
I mean, I'm such a psycho.
If you don't want him dead, why'd you kill him with me? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so funny, and he's just so kind of blasé and matter of fact about it. You know, I think another actor would have done kind of a more ticky, like showy, like imagine like Jared Leto playing that part or something, and really but he's just this normal guy who loves to kill. It's like so compelling. And he's got all the like kind of charm and humor down, and it's just like such a funny little interaction, and definitely one I would have loved to see like play out over multiple movies.
I love that Easy kind of knows what he's getting into. Like first time you hear about Mouse is people saying, "Is it true you killed Mouse's stepfather with him or something? You helped Mouse kill his brother?" Like there's a few like accusations, and so it's kind of surprising as a viewer the first time. But like you're calling Mouse, like I know you need trouble, but we've heard nothing but bad things about this guy. And I feel like a different movie, this would have happened within the first 15 minutes, and the movie would have been about how they have to have a real confrontation, and maybe he has to kill Mouse. But that's just, I love that it's just almost like a half hour of this movie. Mouse comes, causes chaos, but it's still helpful. And then he still has the resolution.
Sure. I mean, he probably would have died if he wasn't there. So it's funny. Right. Like, Mouse's trigger happiness like actually kind of paid off. It's a lot of very funny choices having to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mouse is the hero? Question mark.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's possible.
Sometimes you just need a fucking trigger happy psycho.
Right, and like the hostage he's killed is someone who Easy's been friendly with for quite a while, and certainly didn't intend to die, and just kind of has to deal with that.
Right, he's the bar owner who is obsessed with the like marble countertop that he got from his father or grandfather. Left him this marble countertop in his bar. That's a great detail too. That's such a funny like sweet detail that this guy, who ends up being kind of a piece of shit, I think, just like loves this marble countertop.
Yeah. I do love that there's the scene too where Easy is trying to get more information out of this guy, and so what he does is starts wailing on that marble countertop. And I haven't seen something like that in a while. That was a different I'm gonna make you talk thing that is violent but no one's actually hurt. But the stakes are real. It's a marble countertop. That's expensive. That's a hard.
I was worried about it. I was worried about the countertop. Just
right?
tell him what he wants. For God's sakes, it's a beautiful counter.
Right?
I checked after every whack. I was like, did he break the damn thing? No.
Yeah.
I know that's an example of like a scene where this movie kind of like gets its tone right, like it
Yeah.
is kind of like it is kind of funny and colorful, but also you really are kind of scared in that moment. You're scared of
Yeah.
what Easy's
Yeah.
capable of. You're scared of what's going on. So yeah, in the middle of this kind of like funny scene, you do the stakes still feel real.
I agree. Yeah, I felt like Easy's progression through the whole thing felt very real and like understandable when he did these things, like beat up the marble countertop to his friend and stuff like that, and just kind of didn't care that he died and stuff. Like, I don't know. And sometimes I think in mysteries I don't like when it just feels very out of pocket, that people start becoming monsters or like very, very out of left field. It's like that just doesn't seem like a real human experience or a real human. And Easy to me really felt like a character that was like, it makes sense that he does XYZ, that he does like in the order that he does. So that was and to Denzel's credit, I think he did really, I mean, he was amazing in this. I think he was he played such a good, he had a lot of like empathy for me too. He created a lot of empathy in his character throughout the whole thing. And what a accomplishment for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the last movie stars for a reason. I mean, again, this is a fucking ice cold take, but Denzel Washington, really good.
I think that more people need to hear about it. So I'm glad we have you.
Why are people talking about this guy?
I read somewhere that Denzel Washington refuses to be fully shirtless on screen, which is why often he's in the tank top in this movie and a few others. Okay. And as a man attracted to men, it's a great look. So creates leaves them to the imagination. It's creates that allure. Classy which maybe that's just the reason he does it. It's a great look, right? It's classy.
So, in the era, you were either wearing a 3-piece suit or that white undershirt. There's no in between for men. The t-shirt had not been invented. You were either wearing that white tank top or 3-piece suit and a hat everywhere you went.
That's true.
I like that we do finally get him the suit and it's a great look, but like so often he's wearing that tank top with his old work that fired him's logo. He's wearing his like worker's jacket, and that I was like, this is still a great look. It's not what you expect the noir detective to look like, but it still works so well. This movie also has one of maybe my favorite types of detective, which is I don't want to say amateur, but someone who is not literally it's their job. Someone who's pretty proficient, but is exactly. And I think it makes all the stakes a little bit more real. They don't know what they're dealing with, and they know they've done some violent things in the past, but they're in over their head in a much more grounded way.
Right.
Jordan, when you watch a mystery, a noir, are you trying to solve it?
A good piece of advice that I got when I started reading, I got my first Raymond Chandler book when I moved to LA, right? I'm like,
hell yeah.
I'm an Angelino.
Is that what
now.
just happens when you move to LA?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
The mayor hands it to you.
Yeah. You're like, here are your car keys. Here's the freeways you'll be complaining about. And here's your paperback Raymond Chandler book that you'll read at the Formosa Cafe. But no, I something that someone told me, and I forget who told me this, but I think it was a good piece of advice, is like, especially with those Raymond Chandler books, like sometimes the plot will not make sense. Sometimes like things will just be too convenient or something kind of won't add up. But that's not really what they're for. You're there to enjoy the writing. You're there to enjoy the impeccable vibes. So don't deprive yourself of enjoying that by thinking too hard about like, does this mystery make perfect sense? So I think every time I ingest a piece of PI media, a book or movie or whatever, I don't know. I kind of like, just let myself enjoy the other stuff, and then hopefully the mystery is wrapped up in a satisfying way. But like, if it's not, like, it's just kind of nice to see some scenes in a speakeasy. It's nice to see people drinking in every scene. I'm here for the suits. I'm here for the performances. To me, the mystery is kind of secondary.
Nice.
I'm with you. I particularly like the vibe of a big fan of The Long Goodbye, Lebowski,
Yeah.
things like that are very much about the ride, and you can get out the board at the end and draw your strings to see if this actually makes sense. It doesn't matter. You're kind of missing the point.
Sure.
I think particularly for this type of movie. But I know some people just really derive their pleasures from having their little notebook being Perot by trying to solve this thing before the movie does.
I think that I get peeved off if like it feels like a very intentional ending or open ending, I should say, where it's like
Sure.
it kind of is. I feel like you can kind of tell if the writer or the director is like, yeah, like or let it be like amorphic. Let it be
Sure.
and if it's too much, like I feel like I'm just kind of like, even as Seth and I were English majors, like if that came up literary wise too, I would just be like, well, okay, like that's I just
Right.
there was no no symbolism added to it at all, and that's kind of, that feels to me like where I would want a little more. It used to like really peeve me off, but this one was, I mean, even though that this one felt a little open-ended in that regard, it's and like what Easy's going to do, I feel like I don't need it like wrapped up in a bow necessarily, but I feel like this was a nice, like, even just adventure movie that happened throughout the whole thing. So that was nice to have like the full story byline of what happened.
All right, that kind of wraps up the discussion of Devil in the Blue Dress. I hope you check it out. It's actually currently free on YouTube, so check that out while you can. When I watched it, there was no ads, so enjoy that while it lasts. We're going to go on to recommendations now. Jordan, would you like to start us off?
Speaking of PI stories, I read a great one that actually caused me to kind of get re-curious about this movie. It is called Magic for Liars. It is by Sarah Gailey. It is a PI story set at a school for magical children. There is a magic child school. There's been a murder, and this non-magic PI has to come in and solve it. Her sister teaches at the school. There's all this intrigue. She falls in love with somebody. It is just so funny and imaginative. I loved every second of it. Just great sentences in this thing. Just like great, funny, kind of heartbreaking sentences. Sarah Gailey, quite a writer. So I think if you like this kind of story, but are fine with a little sci-fi fantasy genre twist, this book, you can't beat it.
Fantastic. I'll have to check that out. Thank you. Okay, Megan, you're up.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to try and stay as much as I could into like film noir that I know of, which is very, very little, I must say, I have to confess about myself. But I remember really, really enjoying Nightcrawler, which is a more like modern film noir. But yeah, I mean, I just remember being like, because Seth and I had talked about this too, and I really like the way that Seth put it, where we tend to, or I'll say I tend to, my favorite movies are where people, like, you really care about the main character, and it's kind of like they're optimistic in of themselves, and they kind of have a beautiful outlook on life kind of thing. I just tend to gravitate towards that, and Nightcrawler is definitely the opposite of that, because it's Jake Gyllenhaal.
So we're what you're about to say, Megan.
I know. I'll connect it, Seth, don't worry. But yeah, it's Jake Gyllenhaal going a little berserk. But it was also like, it reminded me of this one too, because he's kind of fallen into his job position that makes him like do all these crazy things and go to these crazy lengths. And it's like, even in talking about it now, it's kind of like, it's kind of funny, because it's like that is the modern workforce that we're in. I can totally see just regular everyday jobs kind of getting to this crazy level due to either people's obsession or people's drive to succeed, whatever that means, or something like that. And
the dude's just trying to keep his house. It's like house, him having the house is what makes him have to go into this criminal underworld. It's I don't know, kind of a funny commentary on how capitalism drives us all to murder.
I thought so, and I think it's a byline in Nightcrawler too, and so that's why I was really impressed with it. And it's like I can see I can see it happening almost. So that's what makes it almost even frightening too. And a really young Riz Ahmed is in it. He does great. So all of that was like fun to watch.
That's a great movie. I haven't seen that in a while. And if you were like me and weren't taking Jake Gyllenhaal seriously, like an idiot, watch this movie. He's fantastic in it. And that was my realization. Like, yeah, he's the best. I don't know why I was being a snob about him. he's great in that.
He's been in some bad movies.
That's true. He has. They're not all winners, but I particularly enjoy his performance. He really surprised me in that movie.
Right.
Yeah. So my, I think I mentioned just a moment ago, The Long Goodbye by Robert Altman's my recommendation. This is a movie that made me fall in love with Altman as a director. There's a very naturalistic charm to this. That's also detective coming into a seedy underbelly and a lot of convoluted. This is based off of a Raymond Chandler novel, so it is that kind of, does this actually make sense by the end of it? But it's just such a fun ride, and Elliot Gould is very fantastic as this detective, just kind of flowing through everything that's happening to him. Check it out. It's a great 70s movie. Jordan, we want to thank you so much for coming on here, and want to hear some more of the details about Camp Pickens. We know it's coming out June 21st. It should be out by the time this episode is airing. Are you able to give us any teasers about what it entails?
Sure, yeah. Camp Pickens. It is another Archie horror edition. Who knows who will survive this one? If anyone. Maybe no one does. Yeah, it's 3 spooky tales set at summer camp. So, yeah, in the tradition of those great camp slashers, it is 3 spooky camp tales. And, yeah, it is out June 21st. So, yeah, as you mentioned, should be out there at your local comic book store or on the Archie website. So get it however you can.
Fantastic. And out of those, since this is a movie podcast, out of those camp slasher horrors, do you have a favorite that you were kind of thinking of in writing this one?
Oh, I mean, so my story is not a typical slasher. I wanted to, make room for some of the other writers. It's an anthology, so there's 3 different writers. I wanted to make some room for the other writers to kind of riff on Jason. So my story is a kind of a creature feature. It's a little bit of a little bit of an aliens, but make it summer camp. So it's got a little sci-fi creature element to it. But as far as summer camp slashers, speaking of problematic faves, Sleepaway Camp. Oh my God, what a wacky movie that is. Yes, definitely some questionable politics in that movie, but as far as like good cheese, actually shocking moments, it's quite a thing to behold.
Right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And anything else you want to promote, anywhere people can follow you online, etc.?
Yeah, I'm at Jordan_Morris on Twitter, Jordan David Morris on Instagram. So yeah, I'll be posting about comics and podcasts and all that other kind of stuff on there. So yeah, that's it. That'll do it.
Thank you so much, Jordan. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks.
We were fangirling really hard about this, so it's a real pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you for indulging us.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed our discussion with Jordan Morris as much as we enjoyed talking with him. It was truly a delight. Seth and I were really excited about this one and to get it out to you guys as well.
Absolutely. It was a delight and an honor. They were such a gracious guest. We really appreciate you coming on the show, Jordan. Jordan is one of many folk in Hollywood who's affected by the ongoing writer's strike. So in addition to checking out their links, we hope you also check out their links for Archie Comics. We hope you also check out the link below to help out for those affected in the Writers Guild. It's the Entertainment Community Fund. If you can cough up a couple of bucks, it goes a long way. And everybody wins if the writers win. We're all going to be in for the better if we get a fair deal for these writers. So you can keep watching the movies, we can keep talking about them.
Absolutely. And we also want to remind you folks that you can find us via Instagram and Twitter, both at Film Optimist is our handle. Also, if you are a website person, you can find us on our new website. We get a full list of links of where you can listen is on there, as well as our film recommendation list. If we have any guests, we add our guests recommendations to there as well. And that is filmoptimist.com. Real easy.
You're lucky to get that domain.
Yeah. All right, folks, that does it for today. Take care.